If one night you woke up and realized you had paid for your husband to take his mistress to a hotel, what would you do? I was in that exact moment. 2 a.m. My phone screen lit up, and the photos poured in, Cole, my husband, beaming in the arms of another woman. The luxury apartment behind them was too familiar because I had chosen it myself for our anniversary trip. But what choked me wasn't the cheating kiss. It was the receipt in the photo. Payment by a credit card. In my name. I stared at the numbers printed on the receipt, my fingers trembling slightly, but not a single tear fell. People always imagine the moment of discovering a husband's infidelity as full of screaming and breaking down. But I sat frozen, my heartbeat slowing strangely, as if my own body refused to react. The pain wasn't in the image of Cole kissing someone else. It was in the fact that every dinner, every rose, every glass of wine in that room, had been paid with a card in my name. I had unknowingly funded my own betrayal. And in the eerie stillness of the room, I no longer recognized myself. No raised voice, no dramatic scene, only one cold thought seeping in. This wasn't over, and tonight was only the beginning. I closed the phone screen like someone pulling a hand from icy water. My body still steady, heart beating slow, mind clear as glass. I turned on my laptop, my hands clumsy with emotion but my movements firm, opening the bank section directly, downloading the transaction history, starting to check line by line like a jeweler searching for cracks in a gem. The small charges I used to overlook, dinners at nameless restaurants, a few room service fees, vague notes. Now they showed themselves openly as evidence. A business trip to Denver hotel, the Lark paid on a Friday night. A conference in Austin, a spa bill, and dinner at a small restaurant inside the hotel. I typed fast, filtered by date, matched them to the trips he had entered in his calendar, then switched to Cole's email folder, booking notifications, payment confirmations with addresses matching the receipts in the photo. A pattern emerged, enough to be no accident. His business nights more frequent, the places he called work, lining up with addresses for two people to stay together. Once, 2 payments only an hour apart. In my head, every fragment started to click. The casual things he used to say, "I'm in a late meeting, don't worry, sleep well," suddenly tasted different. I wondered, how had I lived beside him for years without seeing this part of him? I found myself giving a short, joyless laugh. Laughing because I realized I had been the quiet resource for the life he wanted to change. I had paid for 2 plane tickets, 2 glasses of wine, for their moments together in the dark without once thinking it was something I'd have to pay for. More bitter still, everything bore my name: account, card, digital signature, a material tether turning betrayal into financial weight. I laid my fingers on the keyboard, saving each page, screenshotting each visible line. Archiving became a ritual, every photo, every invoice, every email compressed into a folder named evidence, a name as cold and clear as a verdict. I worked like a witness preparing testimony, step by step, leaving nothing out. Suddenly, I recalled the scattered details of the past months. The wallet he left on the couch, a new perfume smell on his shirt, the late night, "I'll explain later" calls. Things I'd brushed aside believing love was stronger than small suspicions. Now they appeared as tracks someone had left deliberately. I wondered whether he wanted to be caught, or whether he was simply so sure I'd never notice. I called Renee. She's the one I trust when I need to be cold and precise, a lawyer, a friend, the person who'd already pulled me out of 2 smaller messes in my life. The call rang twice before she answered, voice tired, but alert. "Hey, are you okay?" she asked. "Okay. In the way someone starts calculating the future," I replied. "I found several payments matching Cole's trips. Send me everything. Don't delete a thing. I'll see if it's enough for evidence." I emailed the file, adding handwritten notes, dates, times, locations matched. Renee, read fast, replied with a short line. "Possible. Hold on. No sympathy, only strategy." And that's what I needed. Hanging up, I stared out the window. The city stayed silent like every night. The lights from the building across reflected in puddles left after the rain. Below, an occasional taxi growled. Footsteps rushed by. In the kitchen, the clock ticked steadily, reminding me time kept moving and my decision couldn't wait. I began thinking about the next steps, but not in an explosive way. No yelling, no smashing, no calling the police. I knew impulsive actions could be flipped into proof of losing control. What I needed was certainty. I wanted my moves so precise no one could twist them into an excuse. First, preserve the scene. Don't touch Cole's phone. Don't change shared passwords yet. I wanted copies of everything before he could hide them. But I also knew, and this chilled me, he was clever at erasing traces at the last minute. So I did two things at once. Saved every current piece of data and set up quiet observation. I quietly bought an external hard drive, copied the entire transaction history, emails, photos, then printed several sets. Paper always makes a bigger impact when laid before someone. Then I installed a note-taking app on my phone, logging each step, each day, each hour like an evidence journal. Every time anger rose up, I opened that file and saw something else. Not pain, but the duty to do it thoroughly. That afternoon, I bought a long coat not to hide anything, but to change how I felt. When you put on new clothing, you step into another self, the one who can act without emotions swaying her. I rented a small hotel room across from a bar I suspected Cole often visited. I didn't plan on sneaky stalking in the messy sense. I wanted to see with my own eyes, confirm what the data already said. That evening, I sat with a cup of hot coffee, watching people stream along the street. I once thought marriage was a foundation for building homes, plans, weekend getaways. But now that foundation had holes. And the worst part wasn't emotional betrayal. It was discovering I had unwittingly financed its collapse. Being used hurt more than any insult. I found myself remembering small things. That time he said, "You handle the account, I'm too busy," or, "I'll pay you back later," words I accepted out of trust. Trust can be a cute kind of blindness until it turns into the answer to the question, who actually holds the power? My phone buzzed. An email from Renee appeared. Subject line, reviewed things of value. I opened it, read, then leaned back in the chair. She wrote that we could start by freezing some cards, requesting detailed statements, and fixing the evidence so it couldn't be denied. She suggested a path. Don't go public yet. Create a window to gather enough proof to make any counterclaim meaningless. That advice planted itself deep in my mind. I agreed. My silence from now on would be calculated, not fearful. Before leaving the hotel, I slipped a small envelope into my bag, 3 sets of statements, a few printed emails, some photos. I didn't know yet how I'd use them. I only knew that faced with the choice of staying hurt or becoming myself again, I chose the latter. That night, I drove home through familiar streets lined with glittering buildings, and for the first time, I felt I was holding control of something truly mine. At home, I opened the door quietly, making no noise. The apartment still as usual, except now every corner could be a place for clues, and I was ready to peel back each layer. I placed the envelope on the kitchen table, sat down, opened an old photo, our small wedding picture, our once bright smiles, and set it before me as a reminder. Things had been beautiful once. I knew there would be many sleepless nights ahead, many pre-planned steps and unexpected moves to handle. But I also knew, ahead there was no room for guilty restraint anymore. A new night opened. The storm hadn't come yet, but I was no longer lying inside the house waiting to be swept away with it. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the curtains, golden as if no night had ever been broken by darkness. Cole walked out of the bedroom with his usual polished look, crisp shirt, neatly knotted tie, a smile as if nothing had happened. He kissed my forehead lightly, a hollow gesture, like a ritual repeated too many times to mean anything. "I'm going on a business trip, probably back late tonight. Don't wait up, go to bed early." His voice a little hurried, his eyes avoiding mine. I smiled, a thin smile even I found strange. At the door, I watching his back as he walked to the car, hearing the engine fade away. When the door closed, the huge house was left with suffocating stillness. I leaned my back against the door, my hand clenched until my knuckles turned white. Last night I had seen everything, read everything. But this morning, I still sent him off like a normal wife. That fake normality was the shell I needed to hide what was forming inside me. I poured myself a cup of coffee, the hot aroma stinging my eyes. Taking a sip, I picked up the phone and called Renee. She was the only person I trusted at that moment, direct, sharp, and never letting emotions override reason. The phone rang twice before a sleepy voice answered. Yas? It's only 7 a.m. What's going on? I took a deep breath, keeping my voice steady. He just left. Renee, I need to talk now. About the assets, the ownership, everything. Renee instantly sounded awake, her tone firm. You're scaring me here. What happened? I summarized quickly. The late-night message, the photos, the hotel receipts paid with my card, and the string of transactions I'd uncovered. On the other end, Renee was silent for a long time, only the sound of typing filling the line. Yas, listen to me, her voice dropped low. If everything you're saying is true, then you're funding their entire affair. And trust me, a man like Cole, if he's already done this, he won't stop. He may already be planning the next step, leaving you with nothing. Her words cut through the air like a knife. I gripped the porcelain cup so hard I thought it might crack. I know, I whispered. And I don't intend to let him do that. Renee took a long breath, then continued. First, review all your paperwork. The house, the car, the major accounts whose name is on what. If anything is joint, you need to act immediately. He could be moving money or taking out loans behind your back. I nodded, writing down every word. It was bitterly ironic. For years I'd managed our finances, thinking I was protecting our future. Now that same meticulousness was my only shield. After the call, I opened the safe and spread all the documents on the table. The property deed, car registrations, savings books. The house had been bought before the marriage, in my name. The newest car was purchased with my company bonus, also in my name. But some savings accounts opened after the wedding had both names. I shuddered. This was exactly the loophole Cole could exploit. An email notification pinged. I opened it to see Renee had already sent me an emergency checklist. Restrict Cole's online access. Have the bank send alerts directly to my phone. And most important, don't let him know what I was doing. At noon, I prepared a simple meal but couldn't eat. Renee's words echoed in my head. He may already be planning to leave. You with nothing. I looked around the kitchen, every chair, every window, every item I'd chosen with my own money and effort. I told myself, no one will take these away, at least not in such a cowardly way. As evening fell, I organized the papers, took photos, saved copies to the cloud, and printed an extra set to keep at my office somewhere Cole couldn't reach. I felt a little lighter, as if I had placed the first brick in my protective wall. Night came, the house turning quiet again. I sat on the sofa, the warm light spilling across the rug. The clock ticked steadily, blending with my breathing. From somewhere in my mind, Cole's image returned. His morning smile, the perfunctory kiss, the business trip words as if nothing had changed. I closed my eyes and murmured to myself, keep lying. I'll keep playing this part too. But the rules from now on are different. I didn't know exactly what tomorrow would bring, but keeping still no longer meant surrender. It was only the pause before the real storm hit. I arrived at the office that morning like a shadow, moving through the crowded lobby without really hearing anyone speak. Everything seemed to slide past, meaningless. I opened my computer, logged into email, and a few minutes later my phone buzzed. An anonymous message appeared in the internal inbox. Be careful. Cole and Madison are openly talking about moving in together. My heart clenched. I read it over and over, as if searching for a loophole, a reason to believe it was a mistake or a cruel prank. But the name Madison made me go breathless. She wasn't a stranger. She had stood beside me at my wedding, smiling brightly, raising her glass. I had been the one to call her over, introduce her to Cole, tell everyone, this is my best friend. I sat frozen, memories playing backward like a film reel. Madison and I had endured long college days together, shared cheap noodles, given each other rides on an old car. The day I got engaged, she hugged me, eyes misty. Yas, you deserve to be happy. And now the message said she was the one stepping into that happiness. I didn't know how long I'd been sitting there until a knock on the desk broke the spell. John, my coworker across from me, looked up, his brow furrowed. Yes, are you okay? You look pale. I forced a smile. Yeah, I'm a little tired. It's fine. I turned away quickly, afraid that if anyone looked deeper they'd see the secret cracking inside me. At noon, I used the excuse of going out for coffee just to breathe. In a corner of the cafe, I opened my phone and reread the message. I tried replying, but there was no name on the sender, only a strange string of numbers. I typed, "Who is this? Why are you telling me this?" No response came. A swirl of questions rose in me. Who was the sender? How did they know? And why did they choose to warn me? Back at the office, I walked down the hallway, and my eyes accidentally met Madison's. She was standing near the printer, chatting with a coworker. Same friendly smile, same confident stance. I wanted to believe the message was wrong, but when I saw Madison's eyes flick quickly toward me and then snap away, I felt a chill. Late afternoon, when the office thinned out, another message arrived, this time on my personal phone. "He's not hiding anymore. They're talking about renting a new place, right there in the meeting room, in front of several people. You should prepare." My chest felt heavy. The message was another blade twisting deeper. I set the phone down, forcing myself to breathe slowly. The image of Cole and Madison sitting together in a conference room, discussing living arrangements, made me dizzy. This wasn't betrayal, it was a public challenge. That evening, I sat alone in the living room, the lamp casting yellow light, my shadow stretching across the floor. I took our wedding photo from the shelf. Madison in her blue dress, standing next to me, holding my hand tight. Cole in his tuxedo, smiling happily. The three of us in one frame, a picture I once thought irreplaceable. Now it was evidence of a cruel irony. I bit my lip until it bled. Being betrayed by a husband was pain enough to rip a heart apart. But having your best friend be his mistress went beyond any limit of endurance. In that moment, I realized there was something worse than betrayal. Knowing you had given your full trust to people who never deserved it. My phone buzzed again. It was Renee. "Yes, are you okay? I just looked through some of the files you sent. But your tone in the last message sounded different." I drew a long breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "Renee, there's something new. I got an anonymous message. They said Cole and Madison are planning to move in together." On the other end, Renee was silent for a few seconds, then exhaled sharply. "Oh God. Madison, she's the friend you introduced to him at your wedding, right?" "Yes." I answered softly, my throat tight. "Yes, listen to me. If that's true, then this isn't an affair anymore. This is collusion, a deliberate plan. You need to be extremely careful." "I know. And I won't let them get away with it again." That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the dark ceiling, imagining Cole and Madison laughing, plotting as if I'd never existed. I turned over, burying my face in the pillow, but tears still streamed down, soaking it. In the middle of that choking ache, something strange rose up. The pain was turning into strength. As if each tear falling was forging another piece of armor inside me. The next morning, I applied my makeup more carefully than usual, slipping into a navy blue work dress, the color that made me feel stronger. Walking into the office, I caught Madison's eyes flick toward me, hesitate, then try to appear calm. I gave a slight smile too, one that hid everything, flowing inside me. I knew clearly. What I held in my hands now wasn't bank data or shady transactions. I had another puzzle piece. The betrayal wasn't only in my marriage, but in my friendship. And that piece would make the picture of their treachery complete, clear enough for me to see who they really were. I packed a small suitcase, putting a few outfits in to create the impression I was really going away. Cole was used to seeing me travel for work, so when he saw me prepare, he suspected nothing. In fact, he even acted enthusiastic, suggesting I take a break after months of hard work. On Friday afternoon, I drove out of the house, merging onto the highway as if heading to the airport. But when the car stopped at the parking lot of an apartment building a few blocks from downtown, my heart beat strangely fast. I had rented a small apartment on the 12th floor, its balcony facing directly toward the hotel Cole often visited. Each step I took down the empty hallway, the echo of my heels sounded like a drumbeat, reminding me I was stepping into a chess game where I had to stay sharp. The apartment was simple but clean. I drew the curtains back, opened the balcony door. From above, the hotel loomed clearly before me, its glass windows reflecting the sunset. I set a small pair of binoculars on the table, held a cup of hot coffee, and took a deep breath. It felt like entering a silent hunt, but the prey wasn't anyone else, it was the man I had once trusted. Night was falling. The street lights flicked on, traffic rushed below. I waited, heart heavy as stone. With every passing minute, memories of Madison returned, her giggles at my wedding, the bright look in her eyes as she hugged me with blessings. Those images clashed violently with the scene unfolding before me, leaving me breathless. Then, around 8 p.m., a familiar silver car stopped in front of the hotel entrance. I strained my eyes. Cole stepped out first, in a white shirt, hands in his pockets, looking relaxed. Right after, the other door opened, and Madison appeared. Her hair flowed down, a red dress hugging her figure under the streetlights. The way they looked at each other was undeniable. I gripped the balcony railing, my nails digging into the cold metal. My heart felt crushed. Cole reached out, taking Madison's hand naturally, as if they had done it hundreds of times. They walked together into the lobby. Cole held the door open for her, and Madison tilted her head with a small smile, the same smile once familiar to me, now turned into a blade. I wanted to look away but couldn't. Every cell in my body screamed that this was the moment I needed to see with my own eyes. Proof was no longer lifeless numbers on statements or anonymous messages. This was vivid, undeniable reality. I turned on my phone, quietly snapping photos. The zoom lens caught every detail. The light glinting off Cole's face, their interlaced fingers, their synchronized steps. The night dragged on. I sat on the balcony, hotel neon flickering, reflecting in my stinging eyes. I imagined them in some room, laughter and whispers filling the air. Jealousy burned sharp, but with it came a cold clarity. I realized the love I had clung to had long since warped, and in this moment, I was no longer uncertain. My phone buzzed. A message from Renee. Are you okay? Do you need me to come? I stared at the screen, my fingers gliding over the keyboard. No, I need to see this on my own. I knew if someone sat beside me, I would break down in tears. But I refused to cry. Not now. Close to midnight, Cole and Madison left the hotel. He stepped out first, pulling a small suitcase, Madison clutching his arm, her head resting on his shoulder. I recorded video, keeping the frame steady. I captured every second, every image, like a clerk preserving evidence for a trial yet to come. When the car door shut, I remained motionless, listening as the engine faded. The night sky was silent. I hugged the phone to my chest, sank into the chair. At last, the tears fell quietly, one drop after another onto the cold balcony floor. I didn't know how long I sat until the first light of dawn touched the horizon. The city stirred awake. I packed my things, carefully checking the photos and videos on my phone. Everything was stored, copied to the external drive I carried. I hurt but felt lighter somehow. Because finally, I had seen the truth with my own eyes. And sometimes, only by staring truth in the face can you begin planning for tomorrow. I drove home, morning streets bustling, people rushing by. Sitting in the car, hands tight on the wheel, I told myself, I knew I had crossed a threshold. And on the other side, there was no room for innocence. I sat alone in the living room, yellow light cast across the wooden table. The laptop glowed before me, rows of numbers, account entries stark on the screen. Transactions once ordinary now stood as traces of betrayal. I inhaled deeply, then began the work. Every credit card under Cole's name stripped of access, every bank password reset. The screen flashed confirmations, and I felt like I was cutting loose the ropes that had bound me for years. No more trembling, no more hesitation. Everything was executed neatly, as if I had rehearsed. My heart beat slow and heavy, each click a step further from the man I once trusted. When the final action was done, I leaned back in the chair, watching the screen fade. Inside me was not triumph, but the quiet sense of reclaiming control. Night fell. The house was so silent I could hear the ticking wall clock. Suddenly, the phone on the table vibrated hard, Cole's name glowing on the screen. I stared without answering. The ringing looped again and again. I let it pass until a message arrived. Yas, the card isn't working. Did you make a mistake? Call me right now. Minutes later, another call came. I declined. Then a long text. Don't play childish games. I'm at the hotel with clients, do you understand? Fix this now. I laughed bitterly. Even as everything collapsed, what worried him most was the money, not the truth of his betrayal. I let him wait, let his anger spill. Near midnight, the phone rang again. This time his voice exploded through the speaker. Yas. What the hell is happening? I can't use the card. What did you do? I kept my tone calm, as if answering a routine question. Maybe you should ask Madison if she has enough to pay for the room. A long silence. I could picture his face, the widened eyes, lips pressed, shock turning to fury. He shouted, voice cracking. Are you insane? This is my personal business, don't drag finances into it. I didn't respond. I hung up, muted notifications, and set the phone face down on the table. My heart still pounded, but my hands shook less. I poured a glass of cold water, and stared at my reflection in the window. A woman looked back, face worn from sleepless nights, but eyes gleaming with a new steadiness. I knew Cole wouldn't stop. A man like him, spoiled and accustomed to others clearing his path, would lash out when control slipped away. I expected it, and I was prepared. That night I barely slept. I sat at the table, reviewing each bank item, making sure no loopholes remained. I wrote a list by hand. Assets in my name, documents to safeguard, locks to tighten. Each line was another brick in the wall I built around myself. Near dawn, I heard a car pull up. I peeked through the curtain. Headlights swept across the gate, Cole's figure visible inside. He sat there for minutes, calling over and over, then drove away. I didn't open the door. I didn't step outside. I quietly watched, ensuring I no longer played his old games. As the morning light grew, my eyes were heavy. But instead of exhaustion, I felt a strange calm. I had made the first move in this battle. And with that move there was no turning back. I switched off the brain lamp, sank onto the sofa. Sleep crept in, broken by the echo of pounding on doors in my memory. But in the dream, Cole wasn't beside me. I saw only myself, standing alone, no longer trembling. I was learning to face things, to set them back where they belonged. That afternoon, sunlight spilled across the porch, quiet enough that I could hear the breeze in the trees by the gate. I was arranging files on the table when the doorbell rang loud, insistent, impatient. I walked over, peered through the peephole, unsurprised to see Diane Cole's mother outside, face stern, with Lila beside her, eyes glittering theatrically. I opened the door, voice steady. Diane, Lila. What brings you here? Diane walked right in without waiting, carrying herself with the authority of someone who still believed this house was hers to command. Lila followed, arms crossed, lips curled in a smirk. Yasmine, Diane began, voice clipped. We need to talk. Your husband made a small mistake, the kind any man could make. You should be reasonable, forgive him, and protect the family's reputation. I slowly poured water into a glass, set it before her. That small act was enough to shift the air. A small mistake doesn't last 8 months, and it doesn't get paid for with my credit card. Lila let out a mocking laugh. Oh please. You're blowing this out of proportion. A little fling. That's all. Men do that. I turned toward her, narrowing my eyes. Lila, if you discovered the man you loved had betrayed you for 8 months, letting someone else bear the shame in silence, would you call that a little fling too? Lila's face flushed, but she stayed defiant. Say what you want. All I know is you're the one tearing this family apart. Diane slammed the glass onto the table, the sharp crack echoing like a gavel. Yasmine, you're clever, but wise women know when to close their eyes. We all have reputations to keep. I took a deep breath, then gave a faint smile. Diane, I've been silent for too long. I've kept up appearances for Cole, for this family, and what was the result? I was used, betrayed, turned into the one footing the bill for that betrayal. If I close my eyes, the only thing left to keep is my own shame. Diane looked at me, her eyes a mix of surprise and anger. She was used to people lowering their voices, not talking back. Lila clicked her tongue, springing to her feet. I don't understand you. Outsiders will laugh at all of us. Do you really want to turn this into a public joke? I stepped closer, my voice low but cutting. Lila, the joke doesn't come from me. It comes from your brother and the woman I once called my best friend. I'm not creating a circus. I'm refusing to be used any longer. Diane turned her face away, trying to hide her unease. I could see her hand clenching, nails digging into skin. She wanted to yell, but something held her back. Maybe it was my calmness that unsettled her. At last she spoke, her tone lower. You should remember Cole is your husband. If you push him to the edge, no one in society will look at you with respect again. I laughed, unable to hide the bitterness. Diane, isn't it ironic for a mother-in-law to threaten her daughter-in-law with society's eyes, when society will see exactly what it is your son spending his wife's money on a mistress? If you cared about honor, you should have taught Cole what it meant from the beginning. The atmosphere grew heavy. Lila turned away, stomping her heel in frustration. Diane exhaled sharply, rising to her feet. You'll regret this. This whole family won't forget your stubbornness today. I didn't answer. I stepped aside, opened the door, my gaze fixed on the sunlit street outside. Their shadows passed by, fading from sight. When the door closed, I stayed still, my hand resting on the knob. My heart still beat fast, but the trembling was gone. The heavy scent of Diane's perfume lingered in the air, a bitter reminder of the confrontation. I walked to the table, lifted the half-finished glass of water, and poured it into the sink. The sound of water running washed away the tension that had filled the room. That evening, I sat in the small kitchen, the light falling over a table covered with papers. The coffee in my cup had long since gone cold, but I didn't bother to replace it. My laptop glowed, an email from Renee open on the screen with the subject line. You need to see this now. My chest tightened. I clicked, and pages of figures and company names appeared. Renee had spent the whole afternoon digging into the transaction history I sent. When she called, her voice was graver than usual. Yas, I found something off. Cole is listed as the owner of a newly opened company, but it's a shell. No real business activity. What's more important is guess where the operating money comes from. My throat constricted. Renee continued, her voice crisp, like she was reading an indictment. From the money you've been transferring every month into the joint account. He's been using it to pay Madison's salary. In other words, you've been supporting both of them. I clenched the phone, my head spinning. I had worked tirelessly, cutting corners to keep our family stable, and now every dollar of my sweat had become wages for the woman who betrayed my friendship. Did you find anything else? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, though it trembled. Several transfers went directly to Madison's personal account, labeled consulting fee. Clearly fabricated. Yas, listen to me. You cannot stay silent anymore. He's counting on you never checking. I dropped the phone onto the table, my hands holding my head. The papers blurred before me, every line cutting into my chest like a blade. Pain swelled inside me, but tangled with it was a strange coldness. I laughed bitterly, the sound hollow in the empty kitchen. Did he really think I'd stay blind forever? I whispered, as if to myself. Cole and Madison's image at the hotel flashed in my mind. Their clasped hands, their smiles. Now I knew. Those smiles were bought with the very money I had trusted into his hands. I sprang up, pacing the room. The wooden floor echoed my steps, matching the chaos in my chest. I pulled out old receipts, cross-checking them against the documents Renee sent. Everything lined up, chillingly so. No more doubts, everything lay bare, like a map of guilt. After a while, the phone rang again. It was Renee. I answered, her voice gentler this time. Yas, I know you're in shock. But don't let emotion take the lead. This is evidence. If you want to go further, I'll help. I leaned back against the wall, eyes closed. Numbers, faces, and words spun in my mind. I recalled nights when Cole complained of stress, claiming he needed Madison for work support. I had believed him, even reassured him to focus on his career. I never imagined that in those very moments, my hard-earned money was flowing to the woman laughing behind my back. Renee. I said softly, each word burning, I'm not afraid anymore. If he wants to turn me into the sponsor of his affair, then he'll pay the price. The line went quiet for a second, then Renee answered firmly. Good. I'll gather more evidence. But you must stay calm. A man like Cole, cornered, can be dangerous. Inside me, a plan began to take shape. The pain remained, but it was hardening into something else sharp, relentless. Outside the window, the city night glowed. High-rise windows glittered gold, cars slid along the streets. In the reflection, I saw the silhouette of a woman changing. Not a victim but the keeper of truth. A new message flashed on the screen, an unknown number. The words were, brief. If you want to know what else Cole is hiding, watch his business trip next week. I froze, eyes fixed on the short line. My heart pounded, because it was clear someone else was also watching Cole. And I knew the game wasn't over. That evening I wore a simple but elegant deep blue dress, my hair tied neatly, heels clicking firmly on the tile floor. In the mirror I saw myself clearly, no longer the trembling wife crushed by messages of betrayal, but a woman preparing to confront every lie that had lasted too long. Lila had sent me the invitation as a mocking gesture. She thought I would refuse, or attend silently while their family toasted each other. But I accepted because I needed a stage big enough for the truth to echo. The rented restaurant outside the city glowed with warm lights. Laughter and chatter filled the air, glasses clinked. Diane held her place in the crowd, smiling, though her eyes betrayed tension when she saw me arrive. Cole positioned himself close to Madison, his hand resting casually on her back, flaunting their intimacy. I walked in calmly, each step turning heads. "Yasmine," Diane said, her voice a mix of sweetness and warning, "thank you for coming. I hope tonight we can all put the past aside." I smiled, nodded. "Of course. Tonight will be unforgettable." Lila appeared in a blazing red dress, makeup flawless, hugging Madison as if she were already the new wife. I sat, placing my bag beside me, the one carrying a USB drive with my time-stamped photos, lobby clips I recorded from a public space, and the printed invoices. My finger traced the table lightly, nerves rippling through me, but my eyes stayed steady. The birthday unfolded with the usual rituals: candles, cake, toasts. When the music softened, I rose, walking toward the large screen in the corner. My voice rang out, not loud but clear enough to still the room. "Sorry to interrupt, but I have something to share, something directly involving Cole and Madison." The air shifted instantly. Cole frowned, stepping forward. "Yas, not now. This is my sister's party." I turned to him, a faint smile on my lips. "That's exactly why this is the right time." I walked to the screen. What you're about to see was captured by me from public spaces and backed by the hotel's itemized invoices. I plugged in the USB drive, the one carrying my time-stamped photos. Lobby clips I recorded from a public area, and the printed invoices. The projector lit up instantly. First, Cole and Madison entering the hotel lobby together, their gestures unmistakable. A second click brought up the invoices room, dates, times, and the card line printed with my name. Whispers spread through the room, relatives covering their mouths, eyes wide. I continued, voice steady. "If this were only a misunderstanding, there would be an explanation. But this isn't all." I clicked again. The screen shifted to hotel invoices, room names, dates, times, and most damning, the line showing the credit card number, under my name. The room erupted. Chairs scraped, gasps filled the air. Madison's face turned crimson, her hands trembling. Cole froze, eyes darting, words stuck in his throat. Diane shot up, face pale. "Yasmine, what is this spectacle?" I turned, calmly answering. "This isn't a spectacle. This is the truth. If you call using my money to fund a mistress a small matter, then I'm sorry, I disagree." Cole's fists clenched, veins rising on his neck. He hissed, "You want to humiliate me in front of everyone?" "No, Cole. You did that yourself 8 months ago." A scoffing laugh came from one corner. Someone whispered, "Unbelievable, he even used his wife's card." The murmurs spread quickly like wildfire. Madison clutched her purse, lips trembling. "Cole, you said this would never come out." The room buzzed louder. Cole turned on, her eyes blazing. "Shut up." In that instant, every mask fell away. I let the truth speak for itself, every gaze in the room reflecting who Cole really was. The air was chaotic, but I remained calm. I retrieved the USB, slipped it back into my bag, my voice still even. I didn't come here to shame anyone. I came so the family would know the truth. Whether you choose to believe it or not, that's up to you. After that birthday party, I thought the truth would be enough to make Cole bow his head. But I underestimated his pride and that of his family. Only a few days later, social media was flooded with posts, anonymous comments, even remarks under my old photos. They all revolved around 3 words. Terrible wife. Yasmine is cold, she's never cared about her husband's happiness. No wonder Cole looked for warmth somewhere else. How can a barren wife keep a man? She controls every dollar, every step. Cole lives like he's in a prison. Each line on the screen cut into me like a knife. I knew exactly who was behind it. Cole, with Diane and Lila backing him. They had chosen the cruelest way to attack me by destroying my reputation. My phone buzzed non-stop with messages from coworkers and friends. Some asked if I was okay, others stayed silent. When I walked into the office the next morning, I felt the whispers and side glances follow me. No one had to say it out loud. I could tell the lies were being believed more than the truth. That night, I sat in the dark living room, the glow of my laptop reflecting off my face. Renee came over, placing a thick file in front of me. Her voice was steady, firm. Yas, letting them win with rumors is the worst thing you can do. But you have something they don't. Evidence. I opened the file. Irregular transfers, vague service expenses, a secondary account under Cole's company's name. Renee had pieced everything together from bank data, employment records, even internal expense reports. Here, Renee pointed at one page, her red pen circling a line, a marketing consultation worth $10,000 paid to Madison. But look, she's an admin assistant. She has no qualifications to consult anyone. Yas. Renee locked eyes with me. If Cole's company finds out, Madison will definitely lose her job. And Cole, he'll lose every ounce of credibility. But you have to be ready. This fight won't stay private anymore. The sting of being called barren wife, controlling wife, still burned in my chest. I couldn't let them keep turning me into a joke. I nodded, my words deliberate. I'm ready. That same night, I wrote a long post. I uploaded the invoices, lined them up against the payroll, and added excerpts from labor law defining financial fraud. At the end, I wrote, if anyone wants to call me controlling, then see exactly what I've been controlling. I redacted private details, no full account numbers, no addresses, and filed internal complaints through HR and counsel in parallel. The public post showed only patterns and policy citations, not raw personal data. I posted a summary with redacted proof, no full numbers, no addresses, and filed internal complaints through counsel and HR in parallel. The post showed the pattern and cited policy. The raw personal data stayed sealed with my attorney. Within hours, the shares skyrocketed. People who had stayed quiet began commenting, expressing outrage. One of Madison's co-workers left a short line. The company will not let this slide. The next morning, just as predicted, Madison was summoned to HR. The news spread like wildfire. By noon, an internal email leaked. Madison was terminated for financial and ethical misconduct. Reading those words, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Cole's situation was different. He went silent online, but the storm didn't let him go. People who once praised him now questioned, criticized, even mocked him. I saw a post from a mutual friend. Never thought Cole would use his wife's money to fund a mistress. Used to admire him, now only disgust. That evening my phone rang. This time it wasn't angry shouting, it was a hoarse, heavy voice. Yas, you've ruined me. I've lost everything. Did he think I'd soften like before? I answered calmly, no, Cole. You did that to yourself. The line went quiet, only his labored breathing audible. The room went still, but this time the hush wasn't frightening. It was like the pause after a chaotic piece of music ends, leaving space for a new melody to begin. Near midnight, when the house was completely still, my phone buzzed again. I flinched, remembering the first night all of this started, an anonymous message, that choking feeling in my chest. My hand trembled as I picked up the phone, the screen glowing in the dark. The same number. This time it wasn't text, it was a video file. I hesitated, then pressed play. The blurry image showed Madison in a cramped room, her face blotchy red, mascara streaked with tears. Her voice cracked, hoarse but clear enough. I was wrong. Cole told me he loved me, that we'd start a new life. But it was all an excuse. He needed me to legitimize paperwork, to cover withdrawals from Yasmine's account. I never thought it would end up like this. In the video, Madison buried her face in her hands, sobbing. Another voice broke in, the person recording. Say it clearly. How did he use the money? Madison looked up, dark circles under her eyes, exhausted. He set up a shell company. Called me his assistant, paid me a salary with Yasmine's money. The larger amounts he kept. Bragging to friends about his private income. I heard him, I saw him, he laughed, saying his wife would never find out. The recorder's voice dropped, sharp. I work at that hotel. I watched him brag to guests, drunk, laughing. I couldn't take it anymore. A woman like her doesn't deserve this. I froze, eyes glued to the screen. That confession, bitter as it was the final piece. Proof that Cole wasn't unfaithful, he was calculated, exploiting every dollar I earned. I paced the living room like a caged animal. My chest ached, but inside was a ruthless clarity. How many times had I asked myself if I'd been too harsh, too neglectful, if I'd driven Cole to another woman? But this video erased every doubt. My phone buzzed again. Another message from the same number. Use it. They need to see who he really is. I don't want to be involved, but justice has to matter. I sat down, clutching my head. Images swirled in my mind. Cole and Madison entering the hotel hand in hand, Diane covering for him, Lila mocking me as controlling, the cruel smears online. All of it gathered into a wave, pushing me to the edge. I thought back to that first dawn, when the hotel photo landed in my inbox. The world tilted, but I typed one word to the sender. Noted. It wasn't coldness, it was self-defense. Now another midnight message, but this time it didn't paralyze me. It handed me the weapon I needed. I opened my laptop, backed up the video onto 3 separate drives, each with its own password. My hands shook not from fear, but from adrenaline flooding my veins. I sent it to Renee with a short line. Here's the evidence. We don't have to wait anymore. Minutes later, Renee called back. Yas, are you sure? Once this comes out, there's no way back for Cole. I closed my eyes, inhaling deeply. Madison's voice echoed, her tears, and Cole's laughter when he thought he was untouchable. I opened my eyes, staring at my reflection in the window, and spoke each word clearly. I'm sure. He's driven me to the edge. Now it's his turn. On the other end, Renee's voice was steady. All right. We'll prepare carefully. This isn't about marriage anymore, it's financial fraud. The law will stand with you. I held the phone, replaying the video once more. Madison's broken confession, her tears. For a moment, I saw something of myself in her, a woman deceived, used. But unlike her, I no longer wanted to hold on, no longer blind. I was ready to step into the final battle, where not only love, but dignity and justice would be decided. The day of the trial arrived. The sky hung heavy with gray, like a thick curtain. I stepped out of the car, my heels tapping softly against the courthouse steps. Renee walked beside me, sharp in her dark suit, the thick file in her hands. She leaned in slightly, her voice low. Yas, today you don't have to prove who you are anymore. Let the truth speak. I nodded. Everything was ready. The sleepless nights, the tears, the moments when my heart felt strangled had all been turned into concrete evidence, neatly arranged on every page. The courtroom was lit bright with fluorescent lights, wooden chairs lined in order, the smell of old paper and disinfectant mixing, sharp and unpleasant. The doors swung open, Cole walked in, his face stiff, straining to hold on to pride. Right behind him was Diane, her hair pinned high, her gaze like a blade. Lila clung tightly to her mother's arm, while the chair where Madison should have sat remained empty. The judge entered, striking the gavel. The room fell silent. The shuffle of papers, the soft tap of pens, then the judge's voice rang out, steady yet stern. We'll begin. Cole's lawyer opened with the familiar speech, that I was a cold wife, that Cole sought comfort elsewhere because he lacked warmth. Diane chimed in, her voice quivering as if telling a family tragedy. Your Honor, my son was controlled to the point of suffocation. He was wrong, but only because he longed to live like a normal man. I let them spin themselves into their hollow defense. When it was our turn, Renee opening the file, each page landing on the desk like a hammer strike. Here are hotel invoices, credit cards under Yasmine's name but used by Cole Jensen. Here are bank statements showing her money withdrawn to pay Madison's salary. And here, she raised a document, her voice clear, is a record from a shell company under Cole's name, where Madison was paid an illegitimate consulting fee. The room buzzed. The judge frowned, flipping through the stack quickly. And here, Renee continued, pressing play on her laptop, projecting the video of Madison sobbing, confessing that Cole exploited her. Madison's voice echoed. He only needed me to cover the withdrawals from Yasmine's account. Cole jumped up, shouting, "That's staged. A fake video." The judge's gavel pounded, reverberating. "Sit down, Mr. Jensen." In that moment, I saw the tremor in his eyes. The trial dragged on, but each piece of evidence stacked like bricks, forming a wall impossible to break. Based on proof of infidelity, financial fraud and breach of trust, the court rules, full ownership of the house and shared assets will go to Yasmine Jensen. Mr. Cole Jensen is entitled only to his personal belongings. Furthermore, Mr. Jensen will be held legally responsible for the embezzled funds, pending financial investigation. Diane shot to her feet, screaming, her voice cracking. "This is unfair. She took my son, and now she wants to destroy him?" Lila burst into tears, mascara streaking down her face. She fled the room, her dress disheveled, stripped of her usual pride. Madison had vanished long ago, leaving Cole stranded in his collapse. He remained rooted to the spot, fists clenched, his face pale. His mouth opened, but no words came. The arrogance, the confident suit gone. Only an empty man remained. I knew then this wasn't about honor games. This was truth confirmed, justice given its name. And as I walked out of the courtroom, the heavy door closing behind me, it sealed not a trial, but an entire chapter of my life. I left the old house on a quiet morning. The last box was placed neatly in the truck, the door shut, leaving behind the yard that had seen laughter-filled afternoons and heavy nights. I didn't look back. Sometimes, leaving without turning your head is the only way to keep whatever peace is left. The new apartment sat high in a downtown tower. When the elevator opened, I stepped into a bright, simple but warm space. Sunlight poured through wide glass windows, spilling across smooth wooden floors, reflecting each step I took. From the balcony, the whole city stretched beneath me, shining towers, roads flowing like endless rivers. No more gloom pressing down. That first night, I unpacked small boxes, placed a few books on the shelf, hung a familiar coat by the door. I didn't rush to finish. I wanted to feel the emptiness of the room, let it slowly be filled with new imprints, no trace of Cole. Inside a small wooden box I found the wedding photo. Me and him, smiling brightly at the camera, holding hands as if nothing could part us. I sat on the sofa, holding it for a long time. The smile on my face back then looked so innocent, as if I had never imagined love could twist into such a deep wound. I sighed, set the photo on the table, then gently placed it face down. Not to erase the past, but to tell myself that memory had reached its end. I no longer needed to look at it for answers. Night fell, the city lit up. I stood on the balcony, wind brushing my hair, carrying the familiar scent of asphalt, of a life that never sleeps. Below, the sound of horns and footsteps hummed. I smiled faintly. Simply a sign that I was lighter now. The greatest victory was being able to stand here free, no longer bound by lies and betrayal. I remembered every detail, the long nights quietly gathering evidence, the tense hours in court, Cole's empty eyes when hearing the verdict. None of it pierced me anymore. They were just pieces of a story I had stepped out of. I turned back inside, poured a glass of wine and sipped. The sweet warmth spread across my tongue. I knew tomorrow would still bring difficulties. Rumors might linger, wounds might not heal yet. But I also knew I was strong enough to face them. I set the glass down, gazing out the wide window. The city sparkled like a vast carpet, reminding me that life goes on no matter who falls. no matter who loses. My dear listener, by now you must have your own thoughts. If you were in my place, what would you choose? To stay silent, enduring to keep the family's image, or to walk away boldly, facing the truth to reclaim your freedom? Every marriage has its secrets, its unexpected turns. But the most important thing isn't who was right or wrong, it's whether you dare to protect your own worth. Sometimes, a calm decision, a firm step, is enough to change an entire life. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you were in this situation, how would you act? Share your feelings below, because your story might become someone else's source of strength. And if stories like this touch your heart, follow the channel to hear more everyday tales of love, family, and resilience. I'll see you in the next story.